All right, good evening and welcome to the December 2021 meeting of the Omaha Public Power District Board of Directors. Thank you all for joining us in person at the Legislative Chamber of the Omaha Douglas Civic Center and remotely via WebEx. I hope you and your loved ones are staying safe and healthy. With me today in the room are my fellow board members, Mike Kavanaugh, Sarah Howard, Craig Moody, Mary Spurgeon, Eric Williams, and Rick Yoder. We also have President and CEO Javier Fernandez, our General Counsel Steve Bruckner with the Fraser Stryker Law Firm, and members of our board meeting support staff. OPPD's executive leadership team and subject matter experts are participating in today's meeting remotely and in person. Additionally, we have 20 attendees on the WebEx consisting of OPPD employees and members of the public. And we have several members of the public in the room also. As a reminder to board members, executive leadership team, and OPPD staff, please mute your microphones to reduce background noise. To members of the public, thank you for attending. If you have joined us via WebEx, you are in listen-only mode. If you have any technology questions, please use the chat feature in WebEx to communicate with the event host. If you are disconnected from WebEx conference, we ask that you rejoin in the same manner as when you originally joined. For those of you who have joined us in person today, there is an attendee sign-in sheet at the entrance of the Legislative Chamber. The sign-in sheet is for public health contact tracing purposes only. Also, in the interest of public health, in August, the board approved a resolution requiring in-person attendees wear masks at our meetings. We are following the Centers for Disease Control recommendation to wear masks indoors when Douglas County is designated by the CDC as an area of substantial or high transmission of the COVID-19 virus. We also want to encourage everyone to get vaccinated. I will now ask Todd Duncan, Manager of Physical Security, to provide the safety briefing for our location, and President Fernandez to provide other safety reminders.
Exterior wall of the meeting room. Fire suppression materials are located near the stairwell on the southeast side near of the room. We've got an AED and first aid equipment located in the stairwell near the exit on the northwest corner of the room. And then emergency exits and stairwells are listed. The stairwells and emergency exits listed above are on each side of the room, as you can see with the signage, as well as the main entrance behind me out of the room. In the event of a tornado or severe weather, we will be ushered by security personnel to level A of the parking structure attached to the building. And as reminders, please do not use elevators in the case of a fire. And if you have a medical condition, please write it down or consider telling your meeting neighbor. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. I'm going to go ahead with our regular safety briefing also here that we do with OPPD employees and today in the board meeting. First, on the left side of the screen, you have physical safety reminders. This is how we start every meeting at OPPD, make sure that we remind people about safety, our safety standards, and I will ask if you're not feeling well, please let someone know you're not feeling well so that we can assist you. If you're participating remotely from home or other location and you're alone, please make sure that you let someone on the call know how to best assist you by providing some information, whether it's your phone number or your address. Also, please take a moment to identify the location of the nearest AED, first aid kit, and fire extinguishers. Todd just reminded us of that here in the room, but for those of you who are remotely, I invite you to do that. Make sure that you have a plan to exit with Christmas and holiday season with us. Usually decorations and cords get in the way, so I encourage people to make sure that you assess your exit route if you had to exit the place of where you are today. I'm gonna move on to the right side of the screen, and I'm gonna touch on the first point here, which is talks about psychological safety reminders. And one is break the golden rule. I call it enhance the golden rule, which is don't treat others how you would like to be treated, but rather treat them like they like to be treated. And it's something that we remind all of our employees at OPPD, make sure that everybody feels safe to speak up and that we have a psychological safe environment. Next slide, please. Our current safety focus, of course, slips, fails, and on ice and snow. It's the season. Seasons are changing, and puddles of water become ice, and they become water again. And so those changes usually tend to result in more slips and falls. We ask you to be on high awareness for that. Of course, tonight we have lots of employees and outside crews working outside, restoring power. And safety briefings have been an essential part of our day, and these slips and falls is certainly an element of that. Also, winter driving, the hazards associated with the lower ambient light during morning and evening rush hours. We're losing light, and as the weather continues to turn on us, we just a reminder to please be on high alert for winter driving conditions. And the last one I mentioned, holiday decorations, and with that also comes local space heaters at home. Make sure that all the cords, power strips, and portable heating equipment are inspected frequently, and ensure that these items are set up so that they do not create tripping hazards. And that concludes my safety briefing.
Thank you. Now let's run through our guidelines for the conduct of the meeting. This regular board meeting will follow the agenda made available to the public on OPPD.com. This meeting is being conducted in person and via WebEx events and is being recorded. Our board meetings have public comment periods on the agenda. Comments made by all parties during the meeting are a part of the official public record. After board discussion on each pending matter, I will ask for public comment before bringing the matter to a vote. Also, before we adjourn, there will be an opportunity to comment on any other matters of district business. We will take comments via WebEx and in the room. Let's first review the two options for WebEx attendees to notify us. Option 1, which is being displayed now, involves sending the meeting technology host a message using the chat feature, simply stating that you wish to speak. Ms. Henners?
Thank you, Chair Wagner. For those who have joined us using a computer or WebEx mobile app, you will find a button in your WebEx interface to open the chat panel. Once opened, you may send your message to the meeting technology host. Requests to provide comments will be relayed to Chair Wagner for recognition during the public comments section.
All right, and then option 2, which is being displayed now, involves the hand raise feature. Ms. Henners?
WebEx allows attendees to virtually raise their hand. You may use this feature to indicate to OPPD that you wish to be recognized to provide comments. The hand raise button can be found by opening the participants panel in WebEx and moving your mouse over your name as displayed on this slide. After you have provided your comments, please press the hand raise button again to virtually lower your hand. And for those who have joined us using only a telephone, WebEx has a hand raise feature that is activated by pressing *3 to raise and lower your hand. When we see your hand raised, we will acknowledge you by referencing a portion of your phone number. For example, caller with the phone number beginning in 402-123. If you wish to provide a comment when recognized, please wait a brief moment to be unmuted and begin speaking. And at this time, if you would like to try using the hand raise feature as a test, you may do so.
All right, I'll allow plenty of time at each opportunity for public comment for members of the public to provide notification via WebEx. When I call on a member of the public to speak, our meeting technology host will unmute your microphone. Before commencing your comments, I suggest you first affirm that we can hear you. Please state your name and address and state the name of any organization or person you are representing. Organizations should choose one representative to speak on their behalf. Each individual will be allotted 3 minutes per pending matter at the discretion of the board. To assist you, we will display a timer on the WebEx screen to ensure each member of the public receives a consistent amount of time. Ms. Henners will signal you when 30 seconds remain, as well as when time is up. For in-person attendees, if you wish to make a comment, please line up behind the microphone while maintaining at least 6 feet of social distance. We ask that you wear your mask while speaking into the microphone. Please state your name, address, and the name of any organization or person you represent. Each individual will be allotted 3 minutes per matter pending. To assist you, we will use the timer that is in the room. Ms. Henners will signal you when you have 30 seconds remain, as well as when time is up. Please direct your comments to me. I will either respond to you directly or defer response to another board member or officer of the district. The board values and welcomes civil, respectful, clear, and concise communication from the public. During public comments, speakers should refrain from repetitious, profane, or irrelevant comments. Speakers shall refrain from polling the board as such a vote is not on the agenda and is prohibited by law. If you have written materials, please email them to Ms. Hinners at mfhinners, that's MFHINNERS @oppd.com, or hand them to her, and she will receive them on our behalf. In summary, we will take WebEx comments first, then in-room comments, and then have a last call. Ms. Hinners, will you please take the roll call?
Wagner,
Here.
Kavanaugh,
Here.
Howard,
Here.
Mulhoff, Moody,
Here.
Spurgeon. Here. Williams,
Here.
Yoder.
Here.
Notice of the time and place of this meeting was publicized by notifying the area news media, by publicizing same in outlets newsletter, and on OPPD.com, by displaying such notice on the arcade level of Energy Plaza since December 10th, 2021, and by emailing such notice to each of the district's directors on that same date. A copy of the proposed agenda for this meeting has been maintained on a current basis and is readily available for public inspection in the office of the district's corporate secretary. Additionally, a copy of the Open Meetings Act is available for inspection on OPPD.com and in this meeting room. The consent agenda items for this evening are as follows. Item 6, approval of the October 2021 Comprehensive Financial and Operating Report, November 2021 meeting minutes, and the December 16th, 2021 agenda. Item 7, 2022 board meeting schedule, resolution number 6475. Item 8, 2021 expenditure approval increase, resolution number 6476. Item 9, declaration of anticipated 2022 capital expenditures reimbursement, resolution number 6477. Item 10, RFP 5925, 161 kV substation electrical equipment installation, resolution number 6478. Item 11, RFP 5926, manhole duct line associated with Sarpy County 180th Street road construction, resolution number 6479. Item 12, Sarpy County Station Unit 5B engine repair, engineer certificate to negotiate, resolution number 6480. If there are no corrections, changes, or additions to the consent agenda items, I need a motion and a second to approve.
So moved.
Second.
We discussed these action items at the all committees meeting on Tuesday, December 14th. So at this time, do any members of the public have comments on these consent agenda items? If you would like to make a comment, please send a chat to the meeting host or use the hand raise feature in WebEx. Telephone users can press *3 to raise their hand. Do we have any requests to chat?
I'm not seeing any chats or hand raises.
Okay. At this time, if there are any public attendees that would wish to comment, please approach the microphone. All right, last call. Any chat? All right, Ms. Hinners, will you please call roll?
Wagner,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Mulhoff,
Yes.
Moody,
Yes.
Spurgeon,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Yoder.
Yes.
Motion carried 8-0. Agenda item 13, 2022 final corporate operating plan and rate action, resolution number 6481. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the Omaha Public Power District as follows. 1, the 2022 corporate operating plan is hereby approved. 2, the rate changes described in Exhibit A and as set forth in the rate schedules attached at Exhibit B are hereby approved effective January 1, 2022. 3, as described in Exhibit B, the following district rate schedules are repealed effective January 1, 2022. Rate schedules 119, multifamily service, 240, general service, large. 4, as described in Exhibit B, rate schedule riders 463A, green power residential, and 463B, green power commercial are repealed effective March 31st, 2022, and rate schedule rider 469W, time of use rider waiver option is repealed effective June 1st, 2022. 5, as described in Exhibit B, the revisions to the following rate schedules and riders are hereby approved. Rate Schedules 115, heat pump rate, 350, municipal service street lighting, Rate Schedule Rider 461, fuel and purchase power adjustment, Rate Schedule Riders 467, 467H, and 467L, curtailable riders, Rate Schedule Riders 467E and V, curtailable riders emergency and volunteer, Rate Schedule Riders 469 and 469S, general service, time of use, Rate Schedule Rider 470F, line extension residential charges, Rate Schedule Rider 470H, line extension commercial charges, Rate Schedule 470I, tenant attachment fee, Rate Schedule Rider 481, commercial surge guard, Rate Schedule Rider 484, supplemental distribution capacity, Rate Schedule Rider 499, green sponsorship, and Rate Schedule Rider 500, community solar. 6, the revisions to district service regulations set forth on Exhibit B are hereby approved.
Okay, I need a motion, a second.
I move the board approve the 2022 final corporate operating plan and rate action in resolution number 6481.
Second.
Okay, Director Yoder?
Thanks. Teeing this up a little bit, we had quite a bit of a discussion on Tuesday. It's fruitful discussion. We've been having good discussion about this for over a month. Last month, in November, we saw the preliminary corporate operating plan, and that spurred a lot of discussion between board members and ELT and staff. I do appreciate that the title here is Corporate Operating Plan and Rate Action. I just want to give a board perspective that it's been 5 years with no rate increase, that 7 of the 8 board members here have not had to deal with a rate increase since they've been on the board. And the rate increase here is to address the additional $26 million due to changes in our budget that the board desires, quite frankly. This is an addition that the board has a responsibility to address. The board recognizes that rate changes, especially upward rate changes, can cause some pain. And I want to give my personal opinion that in the Finance Committee, the board is working to deliver on individual promises of rate improvements. We've been having those good discussions with the CEO's team. And I'm very optimistic that the ongoing rate discussion on how to slice the rate pie will find alignment through the work and the discussions that we're going to have in the coming months. We've also gotten some emails since this has first come out, and I do just want to share my personal perspective. We are listening. We do hear, we understand, and the changes we understand can cause some pain to particular households, and it's not that we aren't listening. I also want to point out, again, a personal opinion, that for some of the emails, I do want to be firm in my position that correlation is not causation. Generation diversification does not cause an increase in rates in and of itself. And I see that generation diversification as an investment in the future, an investment in a power source where we won't be shocked by fuel changes with renewables. So with that, those are my comments. I would like to ask perhaps CFO Bishop if he can give us some of the highlights on these changes.
Sure. Good evening, board members and members of the community. We'll be asking for approval for the 2022 Corporate Operating Plan and Rate Action. Director Yoder did an excellent job teeing up the major components of it. I do want to take a moment just to highlight the work that's been done by the utility, not only in the financial planning area, but across the utility over the past 9 months to pull this together. I think it's important to also highlight that this really delivers on OPPD's mission of providing affordable, reliable, and environmentally sensitive energy services to our customers, and works to advance forward the strategic initiatives that have been set forth by the board. I'm going to talk just a second about some of the summary financial highlights. John Thurber, who I believe is on site, our Director of Treasury and Financial Operations, will walk us through some of the highlights in this presentation. But at the high points, total operating revenues were budgeted to be in the plan of slightly over $1.2 billion with associated expenditures of 1.8. And again, I'm going to have John walk us through that here in a moment. Just providing some summary comments before I pass the mic to John. And within there, we'll talk a little bit about the strategic initiatives, but also wanting to highlight some of the cost savings efforts that have been done at the utility. As Director Yoder had highlighted, we want to make sure we're running as lean as possible, and there's been a lot of really good work that's been done over the course of time to find additional efficiencies. As we go through and determine what the actual revenue requirement is, as Director Yoder had highlighted, we had a shortfall of $26 million, had completed a cost of service study, and which resulted in a 2.5% rate increase that we'll be asking a rate action for. That impacts different residential classes or different customer classes differently, and we'll talk through that. But again, we feel that this is needed in terms of continuing forward on the OPPD's mission, and as we continue to advance forward on the strategic initiatives. We have had a number of robust discussions and really good questions from the community, from the board, engaged on what's causing these rate increases, how are they getting distributed across the different commercial or different rate classes. And so I think we've had, again, a robust discussion to get us to this point. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Mr. John Thurber. Unfortunately, I'm remote, so I can't see John, but I believe, there we go. Thank you, John, for joining us.
Thank you, CFO Bishop. I appreciate being here and just going through briefly the corporate operating plan and the rate changes. As CFO Bishop did mention, we're going to be asking the board to approve today a corporate operating plan, total expenditures of $1.822 billion. And so that's obviously a very big and important process for the organization. You can see those categories that we're spending the money in 2022. What I'd like to highlight on the next slide are strategic investments that we're making. And we have 5 strategic initiatives. And you can see in 2022, we've got about $11.4 million dedicated to those strategic initiatives. And really, these are going to lay the foundation for the organization going forward. And specifically, the largest there, you see the business technology platform. That's an important initiative for us to complete, for us to move the organization forward, whether it's tied to grid modernization or customer engagement. Having that business technology platform in place for us to move forward is critically important, and we're making significant investments in 2022 for that. Next slide, please. As CFO Bishop did mention, we are going to be asking the board tonight to approve a rate increase as a result of that. The average is 2.5%, and you can see the different percentages amongst the customer classes. And so you might ask, why does one customer class have a different percent increase or change compared to another one? And really that's based off of the cost to serve that customer class. We go through a study when we do this, and we look at what does it cost to serve each customer class, and what is the revenue that we get from that customer class. And then we adjust the revenue increase to make sure that we're covering the cost of serving each customer class. And so as you went through this, you can see the various changes we need to make sure that we are doing that in a fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory way. That is important. We have state statutes that basically indicate that we have to recover the cost of serving our customers in a fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory way. I would note one other change that we're going to make, and that is we're asking the board to approve a change to our fuel and purchase power adjustment, where we're going to be asking the board to include in this category the off-system revenue that we get. Now, just as a reminder for the board, there is no change in the fuel and purchase power adjustment for 2022 There's no increase or any adjustment to that. But in the future, in the calculation, we're going to be including the off-system revenue into what was off-system um, purchases, off-system purchases, and fuel purchases. And what this does is it allows us to mitigate swings that we see in the marketplace, because usually when we have an increase in off-system purchases, off-system expenses, they're usually mitigated by the off-system sales revenue we have in other parts of the year. And so this allows us to smooth the formula going forward so that we don't have to make annual adjustments to this formula that we come to the board and ask for. So that's the second half of our rate proposal for 2022. Next slide, please. You might ask, what is really causing the rate increase, and what are the drivers for that? And really, it is being driven by the strategic transformation that we're making as an organization. We are making what I would call foundational investments into the organization in the business technology area. As we mentioned earlier, that's the largest strategic initiative expense that we have in 2022. We're also making changes in our customer service area, including a pilot for energy burden opportunities for us. Our energy delivery area, we are looking at accelerating modernization in that area, including increasing our tree trimming budget. Now, we have increased that over the last 5 years, but this year we'll spend about $14 million on tree trimming, which will be the highest ever for tree trimming this year, meaning in 2022. We're also making investments in new team members, both in the business technology and the energy delivery area, really to help us move forward as we transform the organization. And last is we do have planned outages at our North Omaha station that'll help us begin that process that we've indicated in 2023, the conversion of those stations from coal to natural gas. We're starting that process with those outages in 2022. So those are really the reasons for the rate increase needs that we see. Next slide, please. We've had the Brattle Group, who's our rate consultant, look at both the corporate operating plan and the process we use to develop it and the proposed rate increase. And you can see their quotes for the corporate operating plan. The expenditures anticipated by the district are reasonable and of the type that a utility following prudent utility practices would expect. And for the rate action, we find the proposed rates to be fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory, which meets our state statute requirements as far as rates and rate changes. Oh, next slide, please. So in summary, we feel that the corporate operating plan and the proposed rate increase really does advance our mission of providing affordable, reliable, and environmentally sensitive energy services to our customer owners. And that is your strategic directive to us, your first one. And so we feel very comfortable that it does that. We have, the question might be, we're asking for a rate increase. What has the district done to help mitigate that? Well, we have looked at and we have made cost-saving efforts over the last 5 years since the last rate increase. The first one being with bond refinancing. We've saved over $120 million over the last 5 years in refunding debt. In fact, just a month ago, we saved over $7 million with refinancing some debt that was going to mature in 2022. And so that just adds up to the ability to help support the projects going forward when we don't have to pay higher interest costs, and we can use those funds to support the strategic initiatives that the district wants to move us forward. In addition to that, next slide, please, Mo. Beginning with some work that started under our previous CEO, Tim Burke, we had a consultant come in and really look at the operations of the utility. And what we've developed, we hope, when we feel is a continuous improvement culture where we continually look at processes and projects and see if there are ways that we can improve them, and look for efficiency gains. And specifically over the last 3 years, we've identified 340 projects. There are about 46,000 person hours involved with that, and we calculate those savings of about $12 million. And that's just in the last 3 years. So we feel very pleased with this continuous improvement culture that's part of OPPD as we go forward, and we'll continue to look for savings in 2022 and beyond. So with that, it was really not a last slide. I would just say that with the corporate operating plan, it really is a foundation for us to build the organization moving forward. We talked about the strategic initiatives. Another initiative of the district is Powering the Future to 2050. I know the employees and the board have heard about that. The public is going to be learning about that, but really this provides the foundation for us to move the organization forward in the next 25 to 30 years. This is our foundation steps. We're investing in those items that need to be done to get us to 2050. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions. CFO Bishop is also available.
Okay. Before we move into board comments, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Thurber? Yep, go ahead, Director Moody.
A couple questions, and John, up there for you, great. If not, Mr. Fernandez or Mr. Bishop, hop in by all means. Two, thank you for sharing some of the cost savings opportunities. It's I certainly heard the comment or question, why can't you guys just save some bucks and avoid the rate increase? So I appreciate you sharing that. I guess I would just like to hear some perspective on what it was like to go through 5 years, continually tightening belts, acknowledging that we knew that there was a strategic directive that we were not going to raise rates at any time. I'm just kind of curious about the perspective that you could offer about what, if any, strain that put on the organization.
Thank you, Director Moody. I'll take the question, and maybe if others want to chime in later on. It was not easy at all. 5 years of not raising rates and really living with virtually the same revenues from the previous year, while everything else out from labor to materials continued to increase, costs, inflation, and we had to find ways to save money to continue to operate the utility with the same amount of revenue, basically the same amount of revenue every year. You can imagine as time went by, each subsequent year became harder. Because again, the inflation pressures continue to be high. I take a lot of pride and a lot of comfort in knowing that what the utility did was not just find one-time easy savings, not kicking the can and really putting savings costs into the future, but really what we did, and John alluded to this earlier, was through a very disciplined and intentional approach, we found not only savings, but ways to do our work in a more affordable way. And those ways continue to stay with us today. So we found ways, these savings continue to be here with us in the way in which we do our jobs. Extending the rate freeze for a long period of time comes with a lot of risks. And it is my opinion, and something that the team, we debated a lot, was that it is at the right time for us to ask for these increase in revenues, considering all the amount of work we have in front of us, and considering that any additional cuts would have started to erode the quality of service to our customer owners. For example, in the budget, part of the increase, Mr. Thurber mentioned, it's an increase in tree trimming. It's an increase in people, in line crews, in energy delivery folks, in technology folks. We need them. Our service territory has continued to grow for the past 5 years, and we continue to serve all of that expanding service territory with the same or even fewer people that we had 5 years ago. So that's one of the reasons why it became harder for us to maintain this 5-year no general rate increase. I feel very comfortable with how we did it. but extending these further would make me very nervous with regards to the service level that we want to provide our customer owners.
Thank you. One more question from me. We've had some pretty significant events this year, polar vortex in February, huge storm in July. We did after action reviews to kind of assess how we performed and what opportunities we had. I'd be kind of curious to understand how this new budget reflects those opportunities and the extent to which we're leaning into solving for some of those opportunities that were identified through those after action reviews.
Yes, and I'm gonna call if Troy. I hope Troy Vai is on the line. I know he's very busy attending to yet another event we had just yesterday. But Mr. Troy Vai, he's our Chief Operating Officer, and he's in charge of our generation plants and distribution. So he can give you a little bit of a better idea of what's included in this budget that will start addressing the lessons that we found and the lessons that we learned.
Yeah, and I'm not looking for a laundry list necessarily, but I'd just love any comments to better understand that.
Certainly.
Yes, this is Troy, and just to cover a few, I mean, we had a lot of learnings from those events. I would say for the most part, we performed pretty well, but learnings from those definitely influenced, informed kind of the way we look at life cycle maintenance as well as some of the replacements. So, for instance, in this next year's budget, there's significant distribution rebuilds. A lot of those in our rural areas, Ashland, Dodge County, Cass, places like that. We've got some services that have traditionally been overhead that will transition to underground. And the overhead that will be replaced in kind will be with more modern construction. We've got about 85 miles of underground cable replacement. Tree trimming was mentioned. I think with the additional tree trimming resources, we'll see about 250 miles of vegetation improvements with that. We'll inspect 20,000 poles and replace about 1,000. And then a couple of things that are pretty exciting is we start a multi-year project to replace and upgrade about 50 miles of our 69 kV transmission that connects kind of our south and north rural communities. And so that's really important because that'll be a lot more resilient to these weather events. And so we're excited about that, as well as 5 miles of larger transmission that will transition from wood construction to steel, which we know those do exceptionally well during all kinds of events, as we just saw this week with those type of infrastructures. We saw no issues whatsoever with the 90-mile-per-hour winds that ran through. And then we also are increasing some of the insulation and heat tracing and things of that nature at our facilities that produce energy. They performed really well during the polar vortex, but there were some things that we knew we could do better in that space that would make them even more resilient with those extreme temperatures. So there's definitely been some work focused on that area also.
Perfect. Thank you, Troy. I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Go ahead. You have a question. We're not quite to board comment.
Okay, I can wait.
Okay. I have a question. Is Julie here and able to comment on some of the customer engagement opportunities that were identified during those after action reviews and how those show up in the COP?
Yes, well, she's not here, but she's in the meeting. So, Julie, I hope you heard the question.
I am, yes. So we have in our strategic initiative budget, I think there was a slide on that showed that we have some work that's going to be done from a customer engagement perspective. So there is some, I guess, piloting that we're going to be doing with that effort. And then there's also some software that would be included in the technology budget. So that's something we'll be working with the technology team on. And that will enhance our ability for customer engagement. The other item that John mentioned that I'm really excited to see where this goes next year is our customer assistance program pilot, which will help address the energy burden situation. And so those monies have been set aside. And then, of course, we have our typical demand side management and energy efficiency program budget items that are also in the customer portion of the budget. Were there any other specific ones, Director Wagner, that you were curious about?
That's very helpful. Thank you very much. All right, are there any other questions before we head into comments? All right, we will start at the top. Director Kavanaugh.
Thank you. 5 years ago, a commitment was made to have no general rate increase for 5 years. The recommendation was from management, and the board went along with it and formally approved it. At basically the same time, the decision was made to decommission the Fort Calhoun nuclear plant as well, which was another huge financial decision at that time. To be quite frank, some of us were a little skeptical at that time that we would make it the entire 5 years without a general rate increase. I'm thinking, how can we do this? Because certain costs are going to go up each year, and our whole we're funded basically by the power we sell. That's the only revenue we receive. Well, through strong management, dedicated staff, it happened. This is a big accomplishment, and I certainly want to salute staff for the great job they've done leading us through these last 5 years. Are we disappointed that we have to raise the rates? Certainly we are. There's never a convenient time to do that, and certainly not right now. We realize folks are facing a lot of challenges, economic challenges for various reasons right now. We understand that. There's never a good time, and I know every little bit hurts whenever you have higher costs. We certainly appreciate that. But I did want to take a moment to recognize the staff for their accomplishments these last 5 years, and wish we could go 5 more years, but I realize too that's not being very practical. And this is a decision we have to make and we have to do.
All right, thank you, Director Kavanaugh. Director Howard.
I didn't know I would get to go next. I thought we were going by seniority. Perfect. I just wanted to make a quick comment. The benefit of being a new member of this board is that I've spent the past year doing tours of all of these different stations. So they took us through Fort Calhoun. They took Mary and I, we went to North Omaha. We saw the Jones Street station. And what I've been struck by is how much work we are doing at each of these stations, and none of that work is cheap. And so for us to have not increased our rates for the past 5 years really hamstrings the organization's ability to ensure that we're keeping the lights on. And so the reason why I'm comfortable with this rate increase is because I feel as though it's measured and thoughtful, but also I can see broadly in the future how much work we will need to be doing, not just to sort of maintain and improve, but also to, as we look towards decarb and sustainability in our work there, we really will need to make sure that we fund it appropriately and that we fund it well. So with that, I'm complete. Thank you, Director Wagner.
All right, thank you. Director Molhoff.
Thank you. I want to echo and thank all the women and men of OPPD who've worked tirelessly to keep the power on across the district. Yesterday was tough, but I want you to know that you're appreciated, whatever your role is. 5 years of no general rate increase has been difficult, but you all rose to the challenge, making OPPD leaner, more efficient, and more forward-looking. When OPPD increased the fixed customer fee over 3 years to the current $30 a month, they simultaneously decreased the usage rate to the current $9.36, for example, in the summer, keeping most bills stable as possible. Before the change, OPPD's kilowatt hour charge was over $12 in the summer. This new rate increase, the usage rate for that customer class in that time is 1025 kilowatts an hour for most residential customers. Customers will all be able to control the increase in their bills by being more efficient and conserving energy during peak times. And OPPD has a lot of programs that will help you with that, weatherization and other programs. While I acknowledge that any increase in monthly bills can be a hardship for some customers, OPPD has implemented many programs to provide relief for struggling families, and we urge you to let us know before you start to default on your bill. Responding to 3 unprecedented weather events in the past year, highlights the importance of maintaining our generation, transmission, distribution, and customer support services to keep up with demand and protect the utility from threats. This budget increase will help keep OPPD on track to modernize the utility and support a reliable and resilient grid. Thank you.
All right, Director Moody.
Thank you, Director Wagner. Just a couple quick comments. One of the things that I recall from our November discussion on this was the fact that we're taking on additional debt. And that is important. We have very good reasons for doing so, but I'm very mindful of the fact that we're doing that. And I know that we have pretty significant investments in the future too. So just simply a comment to say that's on my mind in addition to everything else we've got going on, that's not infinite. That's not an infinite resource for us. This is a $1.8 billion budget. That's striking. It's significant. It represents a pretty large operation. And I think for me, more than anything, the number that keeps sticking with me is the 800,000 plus people that require our services every day. And as Director Kavanaugh pointed out, many people live paycheck to paycheck. They just do. And the reality is this is going to make it harder for them. That's just the reality. So this is not something that I take lightly. This is not something that any of us take lightly. We've had several months of talking through this and trying to figure it out. I know the district, Javier and his team don't take this lightly, but it is time for us to invest. It's time for us, we as a board have been saying many times over the last 5 years that I've been on this board, we've said to senior management, if there's something, if you need financial resources to make this a better utility, you have to let us know. That's our job to approve the budget. Well, here we go. This is it. And it's time. It's not easy. But this is one of those situations where, to Director Kavanaugh's point, it's been 5 years. We've done a wonderful job tightening the belt, but this is an investment in our future. We've got to invest in this utility, and it's a hard decision, but it's important for us. I'm complete. Thank you.
All right, Director Spurgeon.
Thank you, Director Wagner. I would just kind of put ditto marks under the previous comments and to emphasize again that we really do understand that there are people who have a really hard time meeting their bills from month to month, both residential customers and commercial customers. A certain number of those folks, and this is not going to make it easier. So do want to encourage them to to reach out to customer service and say, here's my situation. Do you have a suggested solution? Is there something that will help me? I've been on the level payment plan for 20 years, I suspect, whenever they came out with that. And that has helped me manage my budget. Another family member, they lost an income and they got a level payment plan so that they had less to worry about every month. So sometimes it's not a big thing. Sometimes it's a little thing like that can be very helpful. So we simply must make these new investments for the future. And we're all in this together. We are very mindful of the risks that are ahead in this corporate operating plan, but also of the advantages that we can accrue when it's passed. So thank you.
All right, Director Williams.
Great, thanks very much. I support the recognition of need to make additional investments, and I agree with the associated rate increase, which will fund those investments. So thanks to staff for bringing that forward to us. And as Craig said, it's important that we follow through on what we've said in the past about supporting the needs in the district. On many occasions, I've expressed my desire to see additional work toward a residential rate structure, which is focused on equity and supports people and families who experience increased energy burden. In the 2022 COP, I am especially supportive of the CAP pilot program, which will provide very much needed assistance to people across our community. If from this pilot we identify additional need, I know that we will find ways to provide support to those people as well. This year, no structural change was implemented, which would update and modernize the method by which we determine how costs are recovered through our rates. The description of the increase in rates for the residential class indicated that those who use more energy would see an increase in cost. That is true due to the inherent connection between increased energy use and overall higher bill cost. As Janice said, we have lots of programs which support people saving energy and saving money. Moving forward, I would like to see updates to SD2, which establish principles focused on equity and which prioritize and encourage energy efficiency and conservation. With the end of rate 463 A and B, as was indicated in the resolution, the Green Power Program, I'm looking forward to a new opportunity for people to choose to directly support investments in clean energy. From earlier this year, the policy simplification and expanded maximum size of net metering was a significant improvement. I'm glad that we were able to implement that mid-year. I look forward to additional policies which also support and encourage distributed energy resources and beneficial electrification. New clean energy resources cost less per kilowatt hour than other new energy resources. This is important because, as we saw in the recent energy modeling workshops, we need to deploy a lot of new renewable resources. The ongoing work of Power with Purpose meets the needs of our current customers, and the strategic initiative on decarbonization, which we saw broken down by some of the funding in this upcoming COP, coupled with the visioning from Power in the Future to 2050, will help OPPD to be a leader in the clean energy economy of the future. So I appreciate the work from staff to outline the investments we need to make and to present a 2022 final corporate operating plan, which will successfully continue to meet our mission and live up to our values. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. At this time, I'm going to ask for public comment. So do any members of the public have any comments on this action item? If you would like to make a comment, please send a chat to the meeting host or use the hand raise feature in WebEx. Telephone users can press *3 to raise their hand. Are there any requests to chat?
I do not see any chats or hand raises.
Okay. If there are any members of the public in the room that would like to make a comment, please approach the microphone. Okay, last call on the chat. Just want to make sure we're not missing anybody.
There's nothing in the chat.
Okay, Ms. Henners, will you please call roll?
Wagner,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Molhoff,
Yes.
Moody,
Yes.
Spurgeon,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Yoder.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, now I would like to invite President Fernandez to provide us the President's report.
Thank you, Director Wagner. And I apologize in advance. My President's report this month is going to be a little longer than usual, and that is because of the event that happened last night. So I want to take an opportunity during my President's report to update the public and the board. We've been updating the board periodically, but some of these might be new to you. Yesterday afternoon, we watched as 80+ mile-per-hour wind ripped across our service area, leaving approximately 24,000 outages at our peak. We even heard about a confirmed tornado in the Mid-Yutan area. A windstorm and tornado activity in December is historic. We've been hearing this all over the news. We can talk about why this is happening, but let me just focus on the event itself. Our teams were prepared, and we applied lessons learned from both the polar vortex and especially from our July wind event. Most importantly, I am incredibly proud to report that as of today, as of right now, we continue to complete our work safely with no safety incidents related to this restoration work. And I want to reemphasize that. That is the one message that we continue to talk about at every single one of our large briefings and whenever we brief crews that come into work for OPPD. Safety is our #1 priority and will continue to be my instruction. If we cannot do our work safely, I ask everyone in the OPPD team and our mutual aid crews to stop work, to delay work until they can do their work safely. Now, many, and as of 5:15 p.m. This afternoon, there were about 5,522 outages. We still have meters that are without power. We know that it's difficult. Weather temperatures are getting cooler, and we're working as hard as we can to restore power. We are anticipating that about 90% of our customers from the original peak of 24,000 outages will be restored by 11:59 p.m. tomorrow, December 17th. We are making a lot of progress. We expect a lot of customers to be restored by the end of today, but really 90% of them should be restored by the end of tomorrow. I'm going to talk about the remaining 10% and why that is. Communications have gone out already to our customers with this information, and based on our predictive analytics, we think we know which customers are affected. We've already let them know about this time frame. We are continuing to update our customers and the public on our stormandoutage.com website, and as well as social media as we progress with our work. Let me talk a little bit about how this event compared to the July wind event. First, that the winds were not as intense as in July. They were pretty strong, and they were widespread. They did not just cover a 24-mile area like the July storm did. This covered the entire service territory. And they were sustained winds with very, very strong gusts. As you can see on this slide, the number of transmission structures and poles that have seen damage. We have as of today, 6 transmission lines that are out of commission. They are de-energized. All of them have structural damage, all the way from 1 structure to 12 or 15 structures down. We had to barricade roads because we had transmission poles down blocking roads. We have about 41 structures damaged, and on the distribution line, we have more than 150 distribution poles down. This is a pretty large number, 150 poles, distribution poles that will need to be replaced. We already have all the material mobilized, and in fact, some of those have already been replaced throughout the course of the day. But it is not an easy task. Replacing those take time, and they take quite a bit of labor, and we have all those resources lined up. We have, again, lots of crews working on this restoration, and I would like to take an opportunity here to acknowledge our mutual aid help. We have help coming from many places, especially from the southern states. We have crews from Kansas, from Oklahoma, from Missouri, Mississippi, Alabama, Texas, that those states did not suffer the same effects that we did. And we have a lot of those crews started arriving today at around 10:30 to 11 a.m. We have even more crews that are arriving right now. They will be ready to be deployed tomorrow morning. On the slide, you have over 100 crews on site to restore. We estimate that tomorrow morning we will have 120 crews out, deployed and dispatched, ready to restore. I also want to talk about more than 70% of the outages were restored within 24 hours from the peak. That's where we are today, and that didn't happen by accident. It's a lot of work that has been. That we were able to plan ahead, have all the trucks ready, all the material ready, and we had to wait. Right? We already knew about damages, but we couldn't go out and start repairing because the wind was really strong still. But all this preparation allowed us to have, as of right now, more than 70% of those outages restored. Now, I would like to take just a little bit of moment to talk about what we didn't see. It's easy for me to focus on the outages, on the damage, and to report on what we're doing to restore. And that's what I just did in the past few minutes. I want to talk about what didn't happen during this storm, because we addressed potential issues earlier. For example, transmission improvements that we've made within the past 10 years. We have 345 kV circuits from Cass County to Omaha, the Sarpy transmission project, the Midwest transmission projects. All of those were built to new standards. In fact, the Cass line that sustained significant damage in the 2017 tornado event, when we rebuilt that line, we rebuilt it with new standards, with steel monopoles that sustain these type of events much better. So today we are benefiting from those investments we've made in years past that did not cause those outages. But it's easy to forget, and it's easy not to focus on those, because when you don't have an outage, you don't think about it. But I do want to point that out. Also, we've made a lot of distribution improvements. We have piloted twisted pair conductor to reduce galloping. Some people call them spoilers on the lines. That We have evidence that tells us that those circuits where we have installed those elements sustain less damage. We have had various projects moving conductor from overhead to underground, and we continue those efforts. In fact, we have one clear example of this was one circuit that traditionally has experienced a lot of outages in the central Saunders County area. We buried that a few years ago, and today we have almost no outages in that area. So it's, I'm not talking about here rocket science. It's when we do try to bury circuits, and we are seeing the fruits of that. We also have installed new circuits to use for when outages occur. So, for example, this is the case of Ceresco. The town of Ceresco is served by a single, what we call a radial line. The problem with being served with a radial line is when that line goes out, typically that town would have been out of power for a really long time, and that happened many times in the past. Today, that line is out, yet the majority of the town has power because a few years ago, about 3 years ago, we invested in a distribution loop that would allow us to restore power through the distribution system to the town while we reconnect and while we repair a transmission line. Now, this is a temporary fix, but today I can say with a lot of pride that the majority of our customer owners in Ceresco have power because of the work that we did and the planning that we did a few years ago. Troy already talked about the testing of poles. We have on an annual basis 20,000 inspections, and we continue to find poles that need to be replaced ahead of time. We don't have to wait until they're broken or they cause outages. On substation, we have continued to improve investments in our substation infrastructure. We didn't talk here about much about substation. We did experience some damage on substations, but not significant. And again, it's all the planning that goes with a substation. The redundancy that we plan as well, right? Having the right number of transformers, the right type of transformers available for us to replace on time when we have events like these. And lastly, I'll talk about the vastly improved reliability of critical communication systems. On Tuesday, we talked about the fiber network expansion. This is one of the topics that we talked in closed session about this being a risk that we used to have, and it's today we have significantly improved our fiber network in the region. This is something that we would have experienced outages today with a storm like today, like yesterday's, if we hadn't improved our fiber network. I want to end by thanking our staff. The men and women at OPPD continue to amaze me. I am not surprised, but I am incredibly grateful to every single one of the 1,800 employees, almost 1,900 employees we have. Many of them are today focused on restoring power, but many of them are not. And many of them are focused on continuing to protect us from cybersecurity threats. Many of them continue to work on everything that needs to be worked on to provide the service we have. And also I want to thank our customers. They've been with us. It's been a rough year. And I will say what I said in July, we will not rest until the last customer power is restored. We know where you are, we know who you are, and we will make every effort to restore your power as soon as we possibly can. So that's the end of the storm event. I'll continue to work through the presentation really quick. Maybe there will be comments later on. The November baseload generation was a little lower than usual, 65% for Nebraska City Unit 1, almost 32% capacity factor for Nebraska City Unit 2, 68 and 52% respectively for North Omaha Units 4 and 5. We had some planned outages and some unplanned outages. This is the time when we take the time to prepare our units to make sure that they're ready and available for the winter months. And so that's one of the reasons why you see those capacity factors down. Today, I'm happy to report that all 4 units are available and they've been working and providing power to the grid. The next slide, please. Our peaking generation, we saw some activity with our peaking stations. Cass County was at a 3.5% capacity factor. This is not unusual as we get a lot of wind in November. And so whenever we have high gusts of wind and it comes back down, usually our peaking stations are called to help balance the grid. Today, well, you can see the percentage is 0.1% on Jones Street. We did not run North Omaha units 1, 2, or 3, and we had a 5% capacity factor in Sarpy County. Today, a lot of these units are on. None of the North Omaha units 1, 2, or 3 are on, but we have seen some of these units called on, again, called to respond to the effects of yesterday's event. Next slide, please. And renewables. I just mentioned the wind blows hard in November, and renewable energy contributed 42% of OPPD's retail energy sales. We had a wind capacity factor of 50% and the capacity factor for our community solar of 13%, which is as expected and as planned for this month of the year. The next slide, please. Pathways to Decarbonization. I want to thank all of our stakeholders who attended our Pathways to Decarbonization workshop series. Last week, we held the final of those series, was workshop number 6. They were lengthy. They were about 90 minutes to 120 minutes, and some of you attended, and not only one, but all of the workshops. So I want to thank board members and stakeholders who invested a significant amount of their time in understanding our challenge, our modeling assumptions, our modeling approach, and the different pathways that we are uncovering to achieve a successful decarbonization of the utility, a net zero carbon by 2050, in a responsible and reliable way. And so this is, I'm very, very proud of what the team has done, all the different pathways that they shared with us and their thoughtful approach. The last Thursday's presentation, including a summary across scenarios, portfolio risk analysis, and resiliency analysis. And it was followed by 8 key findings. And I'm going to read them here. One, that OPPD can achieve net zero while balancing affordability and reliability. It is possible. It's not easy, but it is possible. Cessation of coal generation and reduce use of fossil generation. It is possible. However, a mix of new low-carbon resources, including renewable energy, energy storage, and community-wide energy efficiency, will be required. Also, firm generation is needed. Today, with the technology we have today, mature technology we have available today, firm generation is needed to maintain resource adequacy. One where the models show that we don't have to run it very often, but when you do need it, today we don't have that technology to ensure reliability of the system. So that firm generation is needed. Number 5, resources are consistent across a variety of pathways. So that means that there are certain areas where we can start identifying no regrets decisions, where you have common denominators in all scenarios that we can start focusing on what pathways we could potentially start selecting. Number 6, absolute zero emissions scenarios are substantially higher cost and very dependent on future technology development. I am excited to see what the future will hold, and I'm cheering for a lot of these technologies, but as of today, that technology is still being developed. Number 7, accelerating decarbonization accelerating decarbonization reduces cumulative emissions at a relatively low incremental cost, but it also poses implementation and integration challenges. This was a paper exercise. Really getting this generation in place is going to take a lot of effort, a lot of coordination. And number 8, the changing resource mix will pose new resiliency challenges that must be evaluated, understood, and mitigated. Everything is posted, all the content that we have is posted on OPPD Community Connect, and the team is continuing to accept feedback, comments, questions through the platform until tomorrow, December 17th. The next steps include incorporating findings into the OPPD 2022 Integrated Resource Plan, or IRP filing. The draft of that document will be shared in January on OPPD Community Connect, and a stakeholder meeting about the IRP is tentatively scheduled for February 3rd of 2022. We will notify the public once we have finalized that date. Next slide, please. In honoring our community, the Carter Lake Village Winter Festival lighting ceremony. These are some of the fun events that our employees are incredibly proud of, and they are passionate to support. The lighting ceremony was held on Sunday, November 28th, and it was sponsored by Carter Lake and OPPD. And as you can see here on the photos, we had Santa and his helpers handing out gifts at Carter Lake City Hall to children ages 12 and under. The next slide, please. Another way we have to honor our community is to continue to support. This is the 15th annual Run and Walk for Warmth. Registration opens on January 1st, and the event is going to be on March 5th. Last year, because of COVID, we held a virtual event, and Director Mulhoff was the chair on behalf of OPPD. This year, we have Director Moody has graciously accepted to be the chair for OPPD. We do this in conjunction with the Metropolitan Utilities District, MUD, as well. Last year, the event raised just over $100,000, and this is for energy assistance programs to help those in need. I'm very excited, and I do hope that this year we can hold a in-person event. Next slide, please. This is our Empowered Powered by Partnership. So November 13th, OPPD hosted a bilingual neighborhood event in partnership with the Nebraska ASHRAE chapter and In Common Community Development. The planning team produced Empowered, which is an energy efficiency and workforce development event for the Park Avenue neighborhood area, sharing information about how to conserve energy, sharing information about OPPD to every member of our community. It's just another way that we have to honor our community and share important information on how to save energy and money in their homes. Next slide, please. During this holiday season, we also have a campaign to make someone's holiday a little brighter. This is giving the gift of energy. It's a program that we've had for many years, where we have a gift of energy program promotions during the holiday season. It allows you to make a payment of any amount on anyone's OPPD account. You can give that a gift of energy if you wish so to help someone else's utility bill. This year, we will also be cross-promoting donations for our energy assistance program for those people who would like to give more broadly, not only to the gift of energy, but to the energy assistance program. And the program is still going on, and I will likely report at an upcoming board meeting on what the results were. Next slide, please. We have the Smart Thermostat Holiday Promotion. OPPD teamed up with Emerson, which is the manufacturer of the Sensi Smart Thermostat, during this holiday season to bring an instant rebate to our customers for a limited time offer in support of our Smart Thermostat program. This is a win-win. It's the company is doing work in the community, and it helps us manage energy usage through the Smart Thermostat program. We're excited about that. The program participation has grown over 60% in 2021. And last, and certainly not least, and something that very important and very meaningful, especially in an evening and a night like today. In fact, we do this in memoriam, and this is remembering those we lost, and remembering how important safety is for everything we do. Larry Wood died on June 20, 1964, from injuries sustained from a fall after coming into contact with an 8,000-volt line atop a cable terminal pole near 87th and Capitol Street in Omaha. He was 34 years old and had 11 years total with OPPD at the time of his death. After his first year, Mr. Wood served a 4-year enlistment in the U.S. Navy before returning to work to OPPD as a groundman helper. He was survived by his wife, Jean, his son, Bill, his mother, and 2 sisters. And Chair Wagner, that concludes my president's report. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We're now at the last item on our agenda, which is the opportunity to comment on any other items of district business. As a reminder, we'll take WebEx comments first and then in-person comments. So at this time, if any members of the public have comments on other items of district business, please send a chat to the meeting host or use the hand raise feature in WebEx. Telephone users can press *3 to raise their hand. Are there any requests for public comment via WebEx?
Yeah, I have one, David Corbin.
All right, Mr. Corbin.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. First, David Corbin, 1002 North 49th Street, representing the Nebraska Sierra Club. First, I'd like to thank all the OPPD workers and those from out of state who responded to yesterday's weather event, illustrating the importance of your recent addressing of climate change. I'm looking forward to the developments of the pathways to decarbonization as it rolls out and to the IRP. I'm also happy that the battery project is moving forward, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it will be used and what kinds of things you'll learn from it, whether it's peak shaving or grid balancing or outages. I'm still looking forward to when the rollout of the new green fund will be, and wondered what the projected rollout date is. And then finally, I participated in the Zoom focus group for EV users, and many of us were perplexed about the questions about gaining access to charging behaviors, because when we got our charge point, that's what you were supposed to be able to do. So I'm hoping, as I've asked in the past, that you can provide the public with what OPPD has learned from gaining access to the charge point charging that you helped us get through our rebate program. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Corbin. We're noting the request for charge point information. Are there any other requests to chat via WebEx?
I have no chats and I see no hand raises.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Begley.
David Bagley, 4611 South 96th Street, Omaha, customer owner. I was elected to the Papio, Missouri Natural Resources District back in the last century, just like all of you here. I didn't campaign at all, and my sense of it is that it was just a name recognition thing. And frankly, that's pretty much the deal here with the OPPD board. While the NRD did not have a $1 billion plus budget, I was very careful about spending taxpayer money. So how much is this net carbon zero plan going to cost? Well, I figured it out from OPPD's own numbers and that of the Energy Information Agency. So it's all well footnoted here. I figured that the solar is going to cost you $22 billion. Wind is going to cost you $9.2 billion, total of $41 billion. Now you only have right now $1 billion in revenue and $5 billion in assets. In order to service that amount of debt, you're going to have to raise rates substantially. Now, what if Bagley isn't right about that? Maybe let's see what you're going to spend right now on Platteview Solar. 125 million for 81 megawatts. That works out, if you're going to build out 18,000 megawatts, to $29 billion. That's a big number. So what you are doing right now is you're doing a kitchen remodel and you've told the contractor, just go ahead and do it, send me the bill afterwards. I submit to you that if this board is going to operate in a business-like and professional manner, you'll get a realistic estimate of what the net carbon zero is going to cost. Maybe Bagley's wrong about 41 billion, maybe it's 50 billion, maybe it's 20 billion. But I think you ought to find out before you go ahead with this. So you need to survey your customers. Last week, you were all thrilled to have 70 people online. You have over 800,000. So use some of that customer engagement money that you've expensed for this year to find out what people really think. I've conveniently drafted a resolution for the board, which I'll deliver to your secretary, so you'll be able to see. You can go ahead and hire somebody like McKinsey, figure out how much this is going to cost.
30 seconds.
And you can, Ms. Julie Comstock, can use some of that new engagement money to ask your customers, what do they think? Are they willing to spend 20 billion, 50 billion to achieve net carbon zero? I think that's really important. So in conclusion, this is serious business. You're running a $1 billion plus enterprise. And I would submit to you that the pathways to decarbonization will crucify OPPD ratepayers on a cross of wind turbine blades. Thank you.
All right, are there any other individuals here that would like to make a comment?
Good evening, board members. My name is Ron Kaminsky. I'm the president of the Omaha and Southwest Iowa Building and Construction Trades Council. We represent tens of thousands of construction workers, not only in the Omaha area in Douglas County, but across the state of Nebraska. And the reason I'm here today and the individuals behind me are here today is because of what our new CEO, Mr. Fernandez, had to say, and that's safety. Just recently, you guys made the decision, OPPD made the decision to hire Zachary Industrial out of Texas. In January 26, 2007, in Nebraska City Unit 2, an individual fell almost 200 feet to his death. 200 feet to his death. Doing a minor search on Zachary Construction and all their different names and every places they are, not only here in America, but also in the Philippines, you can see record after record of fatalities. Fatalities. What is the cost of a human life? What is the cost of a human life? What is OPPD going to do to ensure that another individual is not killed on these projects? Are we going to ensure that we're watching every move Zachary makes, not only to do the project safely, but not to come in over budget? This is very, very important information. We have skilled workers right here that are ratepayers that can do this work. And we don't even know if they're going to have job opportunities on $300 million worth of work here with these two projects, Turtle Creek and Standing Bear. I urge you guys to ensure that this project's done safely, that you keep your thumb on Zachary, not only because of their safety record, but other issues, FEC complaints. There's records of them disability discrimination lawsuits, just thing after thing after thing with this company.
30 seconds.
And then also Nebraska City Unit 2, there was folks, and I have no problem with folks, visa workers coming over, so on and so forth, but there was workers from the Philippines that were here completing that project. After that project was completed, we were told, my predecessors were told, OPPD would never work with Zachary Construction again. What has changed? Please investigate this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Fernandez, would you like to address that?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Kaminsky. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate you coming. It's obvious the passion that you have for the work you do. And I appreciate you looking after OPPD and our customer owners. I think that's commendable. We are aware safety continues to be incredibly important, and we did a thorough research and evaluation. Safety was one of the main components of the request for proposals when we issued the request for proposal. In fact, there were 5 risk components: pricing, safety, cost, schedule risk, and technical risk. So we had many conversations. We have a business unit, our safety and technical training business unit was engaged and involved in the selection and the vetting of the safety record. We asked for safety records for the past 12 months for all companies, and they all have very similar acceptable and competitive safety records over the previous 3 years. We also knew about the incident that you mentioned at Nebraska City, and we looked into that and looked at what different safety culture and programs we have instituted since then. We have a completely new safety program that was instituted back in 2008, and we have today reporting directly to the CEO. I have our senior director, Kevin McCormick, who's senior director of safety and technical training, who sits at the executive team level, and he's part of every single decision that we make. So we have made big strides on safety, and I feel comfortable with the safety that we practice at OPPD. Now, the safety that our vendors and partners practice, that's another area where we have been making quite a bit of progress, working with contractors on safety briefings. Now, it's important to understand that they come into the site and they have their own practices, but we have an opportunity to work with them and talk about our own safety standards and practices. So we have continued to make really, really good progress. We have large contractors in other areas of the company, like our decommissioning site, where we actively work with our contracting partners and their subcontracting partners to make sure that we are all performing our job safely. There is no price for a human life. That's a reason why we take safety so seriously. With regards to price, we will look very closely to that. I am very comfortable with the way we structure the contract with firm prices, and we will be very, very attentive to the delivery, the budget delivery, and the work delivery from this vendor. It's one of the two largest projects that we have going on here in the next few years. Not only important in terms of dollar amounts, but important for our portfolio. So we need to make sure that these projects are completed on time and on schedule and on budget. So I wholeheartedly agree with your comment about keeping a close eye on not only these particular vendor, but all of our vendors and making sure that they deliver what we ask them to deliver. So thank you for your comments.
Are there any other requests to either chat or speak to us here in person?
I have no hand raises and no chats.
Okay.
Thank you, board, for hearing me. I can't say much more than my brother member just spoke about with the safety. I think he pretty much covered that. I guess my huge issue is with Zachary is they're an out-of-state contractor that are going to employ out-of-state workers. A lot of Omaha construction workers are going to miss this job. I heard from a lot of different board members with the rate increase. There's people that live paycheck to paycheck. Construction workers, a lot of us do live from paycheck to paycheck. We don't get sick time. We don't get paid time off, vacations. If we don't work, if there's weather, we don't work, we don't get paid. There's 250 jobs that will probably go to people from out of Omaha. I have 614 members, families that live in Omaha that could have used this work. I'm late now getting here speaking. I wish I would have spoke earlier on it. That's my concern. I go to talk with legislation about all these tax incentives, all these workers come from out of state. We're paying all the bills. Same with this project. Zachary's going to bring all their people from out of state. They're not going to be nearly as trained as we are. I mean, our locals, we spend millions of dollars every year on training, on safety, make sure nobody gets hurt. This company, I guarantee, does not do that. So, again, I don't know how you put a price on somebody, possibly getting killed on the job. We train our guys. They're trained. So, I hope that we get local people working on this project, building it. I really have my doubts. They've been here before and they don't hire local. So that's all I got. Thank you.
For the record, could you provide your name and address, please?
Bob Grothy, 1116 North 154th Avenue Circle.
All right, thank you. You provided your name. Okay. Ms. Henders, did you get that? Logistics, thank you. Are there any other requests for public comment? Either in person or via WebEx? Okay.
None for online.
All right, thank you very much. At this time, we'll adjourn.